Welcome back to the Crypto World channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now the Bitcoin price is still hanging around the 21-week simple moving average. And right now, something very interesting is happening in both the RSI and the MACD. So in just a moment, I'll be explaining exactly what that means for the Bitcoin price and where my next price targets are for Bitcoin. And also, today is the first day in 2 months that the Bitcoin market has plunged into extreme fear. Once again, I'll be explaining exactly what that means later in the video, alongside my Bitcoin strategy. So definitely make sure you're watching this video from start to finish so that you're not missing out on all of this valuable information. And just before we jump into it, make sure to drop a like on the video down below. And if you're new to the channel, you might as well subscribe with notifications turned on for more videos just like this one. If Bitcoin doesn't end up hitting 100K this year, something's got to hit 100K, right? So let's try and push this channel towards 100K by the end of this year. And honestly, that would be crazy if we could do that. But anyway, with all of that out of the way, let's get straight to what this video is about. So right here, we're on the Bitcoin US dollar chart on the 4-hour time frame. And as you can see here, obviously we've been quite bearish recently, leading into the 21-week simple moving average. And we actually briefly dipped below this moving average. But what I was saying in a lot of my recent Bitcoin videos is the fact that a break below this moving average needs to be confirmed with a weekly candle close, considering the fact that this is a weekly candle. So zooming out on the weekly chart just here for Bitcoin, as you can see, we're still currently forming this weekly candle that we're on, obviously. And right now we've got around 4.5 days to go until this weekly candle closes and we begin the next weekly candle. So once again, as I've said in a lot of my recent Bitcoin videos, this is really nothing new for the subscribers out there. It is very important that we remain above the 21-week moving average in order for Bitcoin to remain bullish potentially over the next few months. But if Bitcoin starts seeing a confirmed break below the 21-week moving average with 1 or 2 weekly candle closes well below that moving average, then in that case, it's actually quite likely that we're going to stay somewhat bearish in the market for at least 1 to 2 months, like what we saw last time. But once again, as I explained a lot in my Bitcoin video that I posted yesterday, the bearish price action is where you see the most opportunities. So don't let the bearish price action scare you away from the markets, because that is one of the biggest mistakes that the beginners make. The beginners panic sell their Bitcoin while we are looking bearish here in the short term. But in reality, that is the time to accumulate Bitcoin while we are sitting in fear. Now zooming all the way into the 2-hour time frame for Bitcoin, as you can see here, we've actually had a small bullish divergence form on the chart. So whether you're looking at the candle bodies here or the candle wicks just here, either way, we've formed lower lows in the price, but in the RSI, we've formed higher lows. So once again, for the beginners out there, that is a bullish divergence. And what it basically means is in the immediate short term, we're going to see reduced selling pressure, like kind of what we're seeing right now, how we're pretty much somewhat heading sideways here in the immediate short term. And that's what I would expect for a little while longer, perhaps over the next few hours, maybe over the next 1 to 2 days. That sort of time frame obviously is very hard to actually time these sort of things. But yeah, that's what I would expect in terms of the time frame. And in regards to the price action, I would expect somewhat sideways price action, maybe a slight move to the upside. And this could potentially lead into a bit of a bounce here for Bitcoin. But with that being said, considering the fact that this is only visible on the 2-hour time frame and the 1-hour time frame, so those really small time frames, this is not extremely significant. So it's only going to play out in the short term. When you're zooming out even to just the 4-hour time frame, as you can see, we have not seen the bullish divergence on the 4-hour time frame. But something else that's potentially bullish to pay attention to here on the 4-hour time frame for Bitcoin is a bullish cross sometime soon in the MACD. As you can see, these moving averages are moving very close together, and this bearish momentum is about to flip into the positive region, into the bullish region. But once again, this is still looking in the shorter term, so this could potentially lead into a bit of a short-term bounce here sometime over the next couple of days or so, or at the very least some sort of sideways consolidation, once again, kind of like what we saw back here. And then zooming out to the daily Bitcoin chart just here, the RSI and the MACD is still heading to the downside, meaning that we still have some pretty strong bearish momentum on the bigger picture here. So once again, that bullish divergence in the immediate short term could potentially result in a bit of a bounce or sideways consolidation in the short term before potentially some further price action to the downside, as the trend on the daily time frame suggests. And by the way, we can actually head lower to the downside without breaking breaking this 21-week moving average. Because remember, if the price heads to the downside, as long as the price can get back to the upside before the end of the week, before the weekly candle closes, then that is still not a break of this level. That would just be a wick to the downside on the weekly time frame. It's only if the price heads lower and we stay at those lower levels for the end of the week, for the weekly candle close, that will once again mean that we're breaking the 21-week moving average. But something good here on the daily time frame for Bitcoin in this RSI is we're actually approaching the bottom sometime soon. If you take a look throughout Bitcoin's previous price history, you'll notice that when the daily RSI is towards the bottom of this band just here, that usually signals a pretty good buying opportunity, like what we saw during June and July this year. And moving further back in the chart, during September last year, we actually saw a dump to the downside towards the bottom of this RSI band on the daily time frame. And another thing that's interesting about that correction that we saw during September last year is the fact that that correction in the same month of the year, but last year, was also some bearish price action that led into a retest of this 21-week moving average. And as you can see, just last year, we held above that moving average just there, leading into October and November. And obviously that retest just there, the fact that we held that level, that actually set up a very bullish move that happened over the next 6 months approximately. But of course, I've covered that a lot in my recent Bitcoin videos. So for the brand new viewers on the channel that missed my last 1 to 2 Bitcoin update videos, I definitely recommend going back on the channel and taking a look at those videos over the last 1 to 2 days once again, because in those videos, I went into a little bit more explanation and further into detail about this 21-week simple moving average and how important it is for Bitcoin. But yeah, just keeping our focus on the daily RSI here. Once again, anytime we're at the bottom of the RSI, we're actually entering an amazing buying opportunity, like what we saw in the March 2020 capitulation back there, and also at the end of 2019, just before we saw some bullish price action. As you can see, that was right when the RSI actually entered into oversold areas on the daily time frame. So if we're actually lucky enough to enter the oversold areas, which is essentially below this purple band here in the daily RSI, then those are some of the best buying opportunities. So we still have a little bit more room to the downside on the daily RSI, but just know that we are approaching a bottom sometime soon, probably within the next couple weeks. And now zooming into the 12-hour Bitcoin chart, what's very interesting about this is we've actually already entered into oversold areas for Bitcoin. And usually anytime the RSI enters into oversold areas on this 12-hour time frame for Bitcoin, those are some amazing buying opportunities. Let's take a look at some previous times that this has happened. First of all, back in around the second half of July this year, we actually dumped down towards around 29,000 US dollars per Bitcoin. And that was basically the bottom for all of this bearish price action before a lot of bullish price action came next over the next couple months. And taking a look at the RSI at that stage just there, once again, the RSI hit those oversold areas on the 12-hour chart, and that was basically the bottom for all of this bearish price action. And now the initial crash to the downside that we had back in May, the bottom of all of that bearish price action was also determined by the 12-hour chart reaching into oversold areas. And also, once again, the daily charts at that stage just there entered into oversold areas. And zooming back further on the charts, the last time before that we entered into oversold areas for the 12-hour Bitcoin chart was back here in September 2020, when the Bitcoin price was bottoming out at this retest of the 21-week moving average. And the time before that was, of course, the March 2020 capitulation. And once again, that was an amazing buying opportunity. But keep in mind here on the daily time frame, we don't have to go into oversold areas. I want to make that clear as well. It's just if we do, that is going to be a much better buying opportunity than where we are right now, for example. And quickly checking out the Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index today, because right now, today is the day that we have finally seen extreme fear for the first time since that low during July. This is exactly what I have been waiting for before entering further into Bitcoin. Of course, I've let you guys know recently on the channel that I've been lightly dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin, and that still has not changed at all. But now that we are sitting in extreme fear, I am increasing my Bitcoin purchases. With that being said, I do potentially expect some more downside price action to come, maybe over the next few weeks, maybe over the next 1 month. But obviously that also strongly depends on this 21-week moving average, whether we hold or break this level. But obviously it's almost impossible to time the exact bottom, just like how it's almost impossible to time the exact market top. So that's why dollar cost averaging is seriously one of the best strategies. And of course, I'm buying into Bitcoin on the spot market. This is not entering a leverage trade or anything. Now, this chart just here, by the way, is the Crypto Fear and Greed Index over time. So this is basically the history of this indicator dating all the way back to the beginning of 2018, just to take a look at how long we could possibly stay in this extreme fear zone. First of all, the last time that we were sitting in extreme fear, we were pretty much constantly in extreme fear ever since around the middle of May all the way up until around the middle of July. So roughly around 2 months, we were actually sitting in extreme fear before we started seeing much more bullish price action. The time before that was all the way back in around March, April 2020. So pretty much looking at these previous times just here, it could actually be 1 to 2 months before we flip very bullish again. So in those 1 to 2 months, while we are sitting in extreme fear, it's so important to stay active in the markets while we are in these amazing buying opportunities, because they don't come around very often. You can clearly see here how often they come around. For example, in around June and July was the last time that we were in this opportunity. The time before that, once again, in around March, April 2020, so well over a year ago. And believe me, after we exit the extreme fear and after we start another recovery, which will happen eventually, bullish price action is always inevitable, just like how crashes are always inevitable. But when that actually happens, when the bullish price action starts again, there's going to be a lot of people in the markets wishing that they bought in at some lower prices in this extreme fear zone. And so I'm simply letting you guys know that we're currently entering into another opportunity like what we saw back then. But definitely don't go all in at once, because for example, we've only just dropped into extreme fear. This is the first day that this has happened. And looking at the last few times here, once again, we've stayed at these sort of levels for around 1 to 2 months. And something very interesting about this indicator as well is the last time that we initially dropped into extreme fear, of course, in around the middle of May, that was on the 14th of May that we dropped into that extreme fear zone just down here. And looking at the 14th of May on the Bitcoin chart, that was right here, as you can see, when we were actually testing the 21-week moving average just before we broke that moving average. And the moment that we did break that moving average, we actually entered one final capitulation to the downside that marked the bottom for all of this bearish price action. And looking at the time before that, back in March 2020, when we dropped into extreme fear, when we first entered that extreme fear zone on this indicator, that was on the 10th of March 2020. So remember the 10th of March. Now taking a look at the Bitcoin chart here on the daily time frame, where was the 10th of March? Well, that was right here, as you can see, just as the Bitcoin price was actually testing the 21-week moving average, and we were actually starting to break below it. And the moments that we did that, we actually confirmed a huge move to the downside. So we both saw pretty similar things in the Bitcoin Fear Ingredient Index and in the Bitcoin chart in regards to the 21-week moving average right back here in March 2020, and also back here in around May 2021. So if a similar thing happened again, basically if we do break this 21-week moving average, then the Bitcoin price could potentially have a violent move to the downside. But keep in mind that move will happen very quickly, and if that's the case, then that will signal the market bottom. Because anytime the Bitcoin price is kind of drifting to the downside like this, obviously it's very hard to be confident that we've actually bottomed out. The only way that I can be extremely confident that the bottom is in for Bitcoin is if we see a capitulation event, a huge move to the downside where we enter oversold areas, we peak in extreme fear, and at that stage almost everyone in the market will be panicking. But those of us that have planned ahead for a scenario like that will be taking advantage of that amazing opportunity. So keep that in mind as well. If we break the 21-week moving average, we could have an amazing opportunity moving forward to pick up some much cheaper Bitcoin. And of course, I'll continue to keep you guys updated every single day here on the channel. And also, if you want real-time updates, definitely check out my Twitter. The link to my Twitter is in the description down below. And by the way, there's a few scammers over on Twitter trying to pretend to be me. So my only real Twitter account is this one here at cryptowrld Josh, with around 27, nearly 28,000 followers. And it's the account that's linked in the description down below. Once again, you'll find a link to my Twitter in the description. Any other Twitter account that you see that looks like mine, that's not the one linked in the description, those are all scammers. And by the way, for those that missed it, I made a full video talking about the Evergrande collapse, the Evergrande crisis. And seriously, that video is very important for all investors to pay attention to. Not just Bitcoin, not just altcoin, but seriously any investor, even investors that are only looking at the stock market, because a potential collapse in Evergrande actually affects almost every single market. So once again, if you missed that video, definitely check it out. You'll find that on my channel. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you got something valuable out of this video. And if you did, be sure to leave a like down below. And if you're new to the channel, you might as well subscribe with notifications turned on for more updates just like this one. As always, I really do appreciate all of your support on the channel. channel at the moment. I can't thank you guys enough. And seriously, there's never been a better time to share these videos around with your friends, because right now, once again, we're potentially entering into an amazing opportunity in the markets. So it's very important to stay active in the coming weeks, because it's the ones that stay active during the bearish times that have the biggest returns during the bullish times. But anyway, that's the bet, and I have to say for this video. Once again, I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.